Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name's Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got Rohan. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. And joining us today from Sydney is Keiran. Hey, Keiran.
Hey, guys.
This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and ESP Home projects. Configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML.
How's it going, Keiran?
I'm very well. Thanks for making the time to have a chat to me.
Oh, of course. Glad to have you here. So, let's jump right into it, Keiran. You're on the Home Assistant podcast. You're obviously a Home Assistant user. How long have you been using it?
I think I started about 3 or 4 years ago now. So I think it was around. I actually kind of went through my emails and when I was advocating this to my friends, and I think it was around the 0.67 release.
Wow,
was okay, there? Nice. It was a different world. A very different
much
world
so.
back then. Yeah.
No Lovelace, all groups, everything. Yeah, had to restart Home Assistant, I'm sure, for everything. Yeah.
You had to be a YAML enthusiast first, and then a home automator second. In a lot of ways. Yeah. It's come a long way. I'm sure we'll probably get into it in a bit more detail. But yeah, and I think I did some dev on it early on as well. I actually went through the Git history of the product as well.
Wow.
And was like, I created an add-on in 2018 in May, and then I put a bit of code into the actual code base in a proper component in October 2018.
Oh, that's wicked.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty good. But about that long. So things are stable now as well. So I don't spend as much time on it. As I used to, which is good in its own way.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that's a nice, you've gotten there, right? In the sense that it's, you don't need to touch it. You don't need to do whatever. It just kind of runs itself. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm using a couple of custom components that I'm hoping are going to hit the mainstream core soon. Yeah. Because I'm also really paranoid they're going to break. I use those components a lot as well. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of the history on it anyway.
That's awesome. So are you in? Do you work in technology? And because obviously you said you built a couple of components and integrations and such. So
yeah, I'm a cloud engineer by trade.
Okay.
So I do a lot of Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
Day to day. So it's kind of funny. Day to day, I help companies move their stuff to the cloud. But then when it comes to my home automation stuff, I disconnect as much stuff from the cloud as I can.
Sure.
So yeah. And then the first sort of components and stuff that I put in there, or the only component really that I put in there, is I put the Route 53 AWS DNS stuff in.
Nice.
So I've got all of that because I wanted to have dynamic DNS at home, so I could VPN in to my apartment and all that kind of stuff, and do stuff remotely. And I didn't want to have to go and use something else, so I had a crack at it. Copied duck DNS, and then was terrible at Python and all that kind of stuff, and just massaged it in.
That's cool.
And then it got merged, and now I was like, oh my god, it's actually in there.
That's awesome.
So yeah. Yeah, and other people are using it, so which is, I think, the main thing, So, but yeah, because of what I do day to day, it's working with APIs a lot and stuff is pretty much the same as home automation and getting all this stuff to kind of talk.
Sure.
To each other. So.
Yeah. Are you leveraging your AWS expertise in any way to do some things with home automation? Are you running, something in some custom code somewhere in Amazon? An EC2 instance somewhere or anything to?
Not in that way. I did mess around with the Lambda integration, which, and I was kind of doing I was trying to find a use case for it, and then I found some, but they weren't really they weren't sort of mission critical things for me. So one of the things I did was I have this Docker image that I was using for running some tools at work, and so I kind of needed that to be updated all the time. So what I did was I had all of the build pipeline in AWS to do that, and then I use the Lambda integration to kick that off again every time I left the house during the week. And then I'd have like a fresh image during when I got into work, and I was like, "Hey, look, it built." And I was like, "This is cool, and this is completely pointless, but it does work, and it was quite reliable." So I was sort of messing with that. Yeah,
I kind of like that. So I'm guessing was this integrated with Home Assistant? So I'm guessing like Home Assistant would detect that, hey, he's left the house, so now he's going to hit this Lambda script, which will then kick off an Amazon pipeline to start deploying something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
that,
awesome.
exactly that.
Awesome.
So it was. And because the Lambda integration is a notification, so it's just kind of like send this notification to this thing, and then it does the rest. But yeah, besides that, not really, because like running too much stuff out in AWS, just because I want my house to function. If Phil, you know what the broadband network's like here.
Yeah.
so
totally relate.
Yeah.
And plus, the Sydney data center isn't exactly cheap either, right? So,
yeah, I get free credits for various stuff, but yeah, I try and keep it all local. yeah. It's what happens when you're a partner. So yeah, but yeah, mainly just sort of local stuff now. But I do take a lot of that stuff for a spin when I see it up there. So it's a bit of an excuse to check it out as well. But
because there's Amazon recognition now, where you can do like some nice image processing and all that. So
I have been meaning to look at some of the image processing stuff. It scares me, but it also is like pretty. I've got this problem. I've got this problem that I have this possum that keeps coming onto my balcony and eating all my plants. And like my girlfriend's like, can't you get your like robotic house to like scare the possum off? And I was like, I could do that.
I build a robotic scarecrow, and every time it sees it, wave at it, chase after it.
Now, even better, just get like some irrigation controllers, like spray the thing, right?
Man, that's actually my side project that never really happened during COVID. It's exactly that. It's like, I had some smart switches, and I was going to do irrigation control for like the plants in my balcony, and I was like, I could just spray it, So yeah, you're reading my mind.
Yeah. So I guess you've obviously been Home Assistant since what do we say, 2018? So a few years now. Is that your first foray into home automation? Did you start off with Home Assistant, or did you come from another platform?
No, I started with Home Assistant. I was actually super interested in the security implications of all this stuff that I was buying. So I think the first sort of IoT thing that was an actual sort of generic appliance-y type thing was my Daikin air conditioner. And so I was like, oh, sweet, this has got a Wi-Fi controller. I can sort of mess with this, turn it on and off during like the shocking Sydney summers. I can like turn this on remote. But it was like the Daikin integration was really quite garbage. Like the app was really garbage. The remote access was terrible. And so then I started poking at the API, and I'm like, so this has no authentication at all and no security. And
was it local, or was it up into the cloud and then down?
The local stuff had no auth. It still has no auth, which is great for Home Assistant actually, because it just works.
Yeah.
But the remote stuff had like a really basic username and password, and there was a massive delay. I think it all ran out of Europe. So you turn the app on remote, and then like hours later might turn on. And I was like, this is rubbish. So I started like reverse engineering the protocols to try and see if I could like build something else. And then I started Googling around, and I found that somebody else had reversed the whole thing and created a whole like bunch of other tools around it. And then from that, I found Home Assistant, because somebody had said, well, let's put this in Home Assistant. And I was like, wow, this actually just works. And then from there, I started getting mildly obsessed. So, the usual build and rebuild Raspberry Pi 100
How many
times.
SD cards have you gone through?
Man, a lot. That was actually a big problem.
Especially back in those early days, right?
Oh, man. I burned through some expensive ones too. I was like, maybe I'll buy the expensive ones. That'll help.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So what do you run it on now then?
So I've got a NUC, and I'm running it on Docker. I'm going to switch back eventually to the full. I can't even remember what we call it now. Like the whole
Home Assistant OS.
HAOS. I'll probably move to that. but that means I have to do another rebuild.
Yeah.
And everything, probably, or at least a migration. So, but at the moment, the main reasons that I moved was because of the constant burning out of those cards. It was driving me insane. And it just, man, it doesn't miss a beat now. It just ticks along. I do an upgrade every couple of weeks, maybe at most, and then and it's just so stable. Yeah, I've got like the Zigbee USB stick and all that stuff now, but I'm kind of in this sort of nice calm moment.
That's nice. It's you know what, I always find that that's like a really good thing to be in, right? Like it's just everything works. It's exactly where you want it, and it's almost zen, right? From that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and there's no worse way to,
Oh, I know.
When you have it and it kind of is flaky, that's the worst outcome. And if you try and get people interested in it, or you try and show it off, and it's kind of patchy.
It doesn't work properly.
They're just like, are you serious? And it's so bad for it. I like the optics on it, but yeah, it's good now. And I think all the components that I was using are stable. The other thing is that the Dakin air conditioning stuff, like they went through a few revisions, and now they kind of figured out how to have it play nice with all the Google upstream stuff and everything as well. So like, you can use the app, the Home Assistant app, or you can just use the actual Google integration stuff, and that's nice. It just works. Like it's like it was built for it. So yeah, no, it's really good.
But it's interesting, right? Because it's you build these things out, and it almost takes like a couple of years for it to settle, and obviously the cost part of it too, right? You're not necessarily gonna buy everything all up front, because that is a pretty heavy investment a lot of times, right? So, I think it's one of those things where you start a project, you get let's say 2 years into it, and then it's like, okay, I think I'm at a good place. I've got my automations. I understand how I work. I mean, you'll still tweak a little bit here and there, but it's nice. Yeah, exactly.
Like it is super expensive once you kind of want to start getting it done right.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid doing it all at once, it is better. And also, each of these integrations have their own like characteristics that you've got to kind of tweak as well. So if you do it all at once, there's often a lot of tweaking and stuff that you've got to do. But yeah, I did do, so I renovated my house recently, and I like redid, I was like, okay, I'm going to get all this working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm going to buy the things that I need to make this, do
it like all in bulk, right? Just get it in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's probably one of the things that I'm most happy about is that, things that were kind of patchy, or I had like different vended bulbs in different rooms or mixed in the room and stuff. I was just like, I'm going to get this fixed because it's getting a bit crazy. So, I went and bought like 35 lights from IKEA.
Right.
And put them all in and paired them all and got all that humming along.
Interesting. Okay, so and that would be a good question then. If you were renovating your house, and why didn't you go the smart switch route instead of all the smart bulbs?
Yeah. So what I've done is that I wanted to have my place. So what I did is I renovated my flat, and I was like, all of the things that I can automate and have them, as permanent fixtures as much as possible. I wanted to have that done. And then I looked at everything at the time, and it's changed again. But what I landed with was that I wanted to have every light in the house effectively, independently controllable where possible. I could, dim them, all that kind of stuff, and control them. But I also wanted to, potentially, if I ever needed to move out and rent it, I didn't want to have it all hardwired in and have to either teach a tenant how all this stuff works or how to just leave it. So that was sort of the main thing. So what I did was I went and I evaluated. I bought like one of everything and like tried all these different vendors. I already had the Hue base station and I liked it.
Yep.
But I didn't want to pay for like 34 plus spares Hue bulbs. And,
that would bankrupt you very quickly.
Yeah, I'd have to take another mortgage out. So it was around that time that the IKEA smart bulbs that are Hue compatible sort of hit their stride and turned up in Australia. So So I bought a couple and I bought some fixtures and I just had them all, running in parallel just on my desk with a bunch of other lights that you could get in Australia. And I sort of baked them off, and I found that some of the other lights had like really poor dimming functionalities. They would flicker, and I found some would buzz. And I was like,
wow, the buzzing, definitely.
Yeah. Have you seen a lot of that?
Yeah, like I've got very, like, once again, right, like depending on what's on sale or what is the flavor of the month, I've got, different generation hue bulbs. I've got IKEA, I've got Lightify from Osram, something else random from Bunnings as well. And yeah, like even some Xiaomi ones actually. And yeah, depending on the quality of the bulb and the brand, like you dim the light down to, like a 1% or something. It's not a true 1% that you could get with a real dimmer in the wall. And yeah, you can, if you get really close to it, you can actually hear the buzzing in it, right?
Yeah.
Which becomes very annoying for things like podcasts where microphones pick up, the slightest noise in the background, and then you go to edit the podcast and you can just hear that light bulb in the background, right?
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great at all. So I was really pretty methodical about it. And then what I ended up doing was I've kept the Hue base station for now. I like the fact that I can, if the NUC ever dies, I can just be like, all right, the lights still work. And I've sort of I've got dimmers and that kind of stuff. But I've got a feeling that I might just switch them over to the Zigbee stick I've got long term.
What generation hub did you get?
I've got the second. So second generation, I think, which is the current one, but it's non-Wi-Fi. So I've got it plugged into something.
Right, yeah. Because I've got the version 1. I actually got a couple of version 1s. I found it cheaper to buy the starter kit, right, to get the 2 bulbs and the hub, and never was able to sell the version 1 because when I went to get it, the version 2 came out, and then now Philips has sort of started, deprecating, the old hardware, and I was like, nah, jump ship, get over to Decons. Or I originally started with like one of the CC2531 radios using Zigbee to MQTT, but like that's the beautiful thing about Zigbee, right? And all these projects that are out there, just it's easy to migrate off the Hue hub if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also found the Hue gear pretty rock solid. Like, it's got its own ecosystem sort of woes, but it does just kind of work.
The one thing I don't like about moving away from the Philips Hue hub is that you don't get some of the cool stuff that Philips Hue are doing in terms of, like syncing to TVs or syncing to music. You can't get that obviously with Home Assistant. I'm sure there's ways around it, but it's not going to be as perfect that like the Philips Hue native stuff can do.
Yeah. The other thing is, and this is something I need to look into, is like I don't know if some of that stuff works with the IKEA bulbs. So I think some of that stuff is disabled because it doesn't have the enhancements in the firmware. And so, I haven't really messed with it that much. I think I just needed to get my place working. But I've got a feeling some of that
Interesting.
stuff.
So it's only within the Philips ecosystem, not the partners.
Yeah, from what I understand anyway. So things like, when you like turn on and off a smart bulb, like a Zigbee one, they often default back to like generally on. So Philips rolled out a feature to allow you to set the default behavior because, you come home and it's blackout and all your lights are on. And I don't think that works with IKEA stuff, with those bulbs. I think it's a missing feature. There may be a firmware update that I'm missing, but yeah, I did notice some of that stuff wasn't working.
I know Philips got into a bit of a stink as well when they originally just one day decided, because for quite some time the Philips Hue hub was advertised as a Zigbee Lightlink compatible router, right? And they just one day decided to issue out a firmware update that would block all third-party light bulbs. So, your IKEAs, your Osrams. And yeah, Philips got into a lot of hot water over that. They eventually backflipped. And I think that's, sort of got a lot of, old school diehard Philips Hue fans a bit, okay, maybe it's not the best hub for me if they're going to, one day a firmware update can just brick all my light bulbs, right?
Yeah, like that I'm really glad that of all of these vendors, they have been pretty good with the APIs that they provide from the base station and the integrations from third parties, and especially the bulb integration. Like, you just don't see that much of this IoT stuff. They just, everybody balls off their own little gardens and they make it difficult and cloud services and stuff. But yeah, with that one, like I looked at the API guide for it once. I was like, wow, I wished all of the IT vendors that I work with day to day wrote stuff like this and kept it, up to date and consistent and whatever. So
if you went the smart light bulb route, what did you choose as your driver for those bulbs? Have you got smart switches as well, or is it all dumb switches that just then get left in the on position?
Yeah, so what I do is I've got some clear tape, the old clear tape over the switch.
Yeah, that's what I've done because I'm a renter. Same thing.
Yeah,
little masking tape over the switches.
Yeah, it's not great. It's probably one of those things that I'm like, I've renovated my apartment. It looks awesome now, and I've still got these switches that are ugly. But I've got the dimmers across the house above them. One of my colleagues at work has a 3D printer, and he's been looking at building the covers for the switches. So, I've been considering sort of seeing what it would take for me to convince him to print me, say, 15 of them for my apartment and then cover them up nicely.
Because I know there is a company in the States that sells a product, that is designed to cover like your light switch. There's a couple of options with like just clear plastic guards to go over switches to say, you can't control this. But I think there is, some company out there, I'll have to find it. They do like molds for the Philips Hue tap switches, the dimmers, and I think they're only compatible with US style switches. You know how in Australia we've got those little flimsy ones, and in the States they've got the big paddle type toggles. So I think we can't use them out here, but there's definitely companies out there that have seen this problem and have solutions out there.
Yeah. There's one company that was selling them that you put over and it has the magnet and everything in them. And
stick right on.
That's
right?
it. They looked expensive and I was like, So, everything's just switches like that. And I've sort of got them positioned around the place for the time being. Because, if I ever sell a place or if I want to, rent it out, I didn't want to be like, okay, here's how you have to kind of use all this stuff,
Yeah, you don't need an instruction manual for your house.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is, I see a lot of people going to the like Bunnings in Australia, and they're buying these things that they're like they talk back to Tuya, and they're wiring them into their house, and I'm like, I look at this and I'm like, oh man, this is crazy talk. Like, your house is just going to be talking back to this third-party company. It's going to date really quickly, and I'm like, oh, this is bad news. So, I'm not too keen on, and it just moves so fast, So, but yeah, the lighting in my place, I'm super happy with it now. Like all the downlights are done. I've got strip lighting in the rooms. I've got.
Do you have color temperature control as well over the light bulbs?
That's the problem. That's one of the problems I've got right now with the temperature, the color temperatures, is that because everything goes back to the Hue base station. I can individually control all of the lights and their colors, but a lot of that sort of grouping and that kind of stuff is done at the Hue level, and then I sort of group them together inside of Home Assistant and so on and so forth. I need to get my act together and sort the color grouping and also the switches as well, so I can toggle through scenes. And I'm in this like weird Hue Home Assistant
sort of. I know what you mean.
Where I'm like, but that's probably the main pain point at the moment that I have, and that's why I'm considering just like going straight to Zigbee and just getting it all one way.
That was my thinking too. So I had like same thing, right? Like you would press a Philips Hue tap button and the lights would come on, but they'll be at the wrong temperature for the time of the day, right? Like there would be, the really cool white in the middle of the night and you look like you're in a hospital or something, right? So eventually when I moved over to Home Assistant, I have Home Assistant as the master that will tell, what temperature each light needs to be depending on what time of day it is. And when all the light turn on services go, it just reads via a template what the value of that numbers field is, and then set the light based on that. I then also have a couple of Xiaomi switches around the place that are directly linked. So if Home Assistant goes down, you can still use those buttons to turn the lights on.
Yeah.
But in the event that Home Assistant is on, it just watches. If the light turns on and Home Assistant didn't turn the light on, it will fire the automation to then just adjust the temperature back to what it should be. There is a split-second delay, right? So it's not instant, but it's better than,
So like it'll go white and then change back to yellow or whatever. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's quite clever actually that you can do these kind of automations, like
because you can probably do the same thing with the Philips Hue, right? Once Home Assistant knows that a tap switch is being triggered to turn on these lights, and they're the wrong temperature, then Home Assistant can jump in and change it straight away.
You know what? That might actually be a decent stopgap for me in the time. I think the other thing is I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and I'll do it at the same time I migrate back to HasOS. Yeah. All right, the lights are getting fixed. I'll name them all correctly this time too.
It's you know what it is? It's the biggest pain is having to reset all of them and repair them to, the new stick or whatever you end up using, right?
Or having to reset every single bulb, like having to flick them on and off 5 times, and then one of them doesn't, do it on that series of switch, and you've got to do it all again. Or you have to walk around with a Philips Hue dimmer and then go next to a bulb and press the on-off button on your little remote, and it unpairs the wrong bulb. Oh.
So you know what I did for this?
Zigbee.
You know what I did for this? Because I couldn't do that 5 flicks, put them in consistently for like 4 lights at a time. And because my base station was in another room and I was doing the lights, like 35 or so downlights for the whole place, I was like, this is driving me insane. So I went back to IKEA and I bought one of their single or 2 downlight things that I cabled up to a thing. And then I would just do 2 lights at a time at my desk and then pair them, name them. But even that gets pretty old fast when you're doing over 30 lights.
You have like a priming station to get your lights going. Yeah. Oh yeah, man, it's funny. I have exactly 2 trad-free like the IKEA bulbs, which are the GU10 ones, because I found that they're one of the only people that actually make a smart GU10 bulb, right? So my hood range above my stove, so like the exhaust, that one it's got 2 little lights there, and those were just not smart, and that's the one light I always forget to turn off before I go to bed. So I was like, okay, fine, worth the investment, whatever. Same thing, resetting it, but it's a button, like a push-in button.
Oh, really?
And it is the most frustrating thing, right? So the button itself is on the exhaust itself that you turn on and off.
Of course it is, yeah.
So it's like I'm like pressing it frantically as I'm like please let this cheap button not like fall off or something like that, right? And trying to reset this, and it's the worst. It's the worst. I hate having to reset these devices. So
that's what I've got. I've got like over 30 of those GU10 IKEA bulbs in my place, and it's the worst. Absolute worst when you have to do so many of them, and you're like, you try and bulk do them, and and it doesn't work, and then you're back to small numbers in sequence.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to go to that pretty soon. I was telling Phil the other day, I'm pretty sure my Convi's dead. So
my heart goes for you, man. Yeah, that's going to be a pain in the ass to have to redo everything.
Yeah, well, I think before that, I'm going to try deleting all my ZHA stuff, which means I have to repair everything again. But and then go from there. But
it's brutal. My mate, he's pedantic about naming everything as well. He's one of my colleagues, and he's like, "Man, you got to redo all yours anyway because you've named everything wrong, and it's giving me anxiety."
Honestly, most days I'm with them there. Like it's to me, it's one of those, like, because I will just not find it, and the worst is when the label mismatches the actual entity name or something like that, and it's like, I get it. Yeah,
he's right. He is right. So but right now everything just works so nicely.
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay,
if it ain't broke,
like,
don't fix it.
Yeah. But do you want me to tell you a bit more about what I've got? Because I've got more than just lights.
Yes,
tell us.
What are you using to drive Home Assistant? You've got like you said Google Home before, but what else are you using there?
Yeah, so I've got it all running on the NUC. I use Docker for that, and Docker Compose just to keep it like super tidy.
Nice.
I'm an IT geek, by day. So, I kind of set it up so that it's nice and documented, and I've got like all that stuff in GitHub.
Beautiful.
So I lose it.
But you just don't have your light bulbs named correctly.
Yeah, but I can't. Yeah, look, it's a long story.
99% of the way there, just that 1%.
Yeah,
That's the hurdle.
yeah. No, I'm always up for continuous improvement.
That's it. That's it.
But and then from there, what else have I got? So I have a whole bunch of the Xiaomi sensors. Probably one of my earliest investments was the full Xiaomi alarm kit that I used to sell.
Yeah.
With all the first bunch of.
I don't know how they can call that an alarm kit. It's what is it's a little speaker on a tiny thing that plugs in that talks Chinese to you. That's not going to scare anyone, right? If it ever has an alarm.
Man, when I got it as well, there was no English function.
No, I was using Google Translate against my phone. What is it telling me to do?
That's
right?
amazing.
Yeah. It was so this was early days as well. I was like, wow, I can get sensors into this Home Assistant thing through this Chinese thing.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what are you doing to your house? And I was like, look, it's legit. It's good. But so I got that. I eventually sort of transitioned that off to pure Zigbee with the stick. But I've got a bunch of nice dashboards that sort of show me all of the windows and doors in the place, and
so they're all the Xiaomi window sensors that you're using.
Yeah, they're really nice. The second generation of them,
they're
the ones that probably most people have, are really nice. So I've got those, and I think one of the earliest automations where I was like, wow, this is actually useful now was if my balcony door is open for more than 2 minutes, turn off the air conditioner.
Yep.
Nice.
And I was like, yeah. That blew my mind at the time. I was like, this actually works.
You don't realize how nice that is. I think I mentioned on the show, I think probably 2 months ago, I got that working with my back and front door sensors, because it's we'll open the door, but then you don't think of hey, let me go to the Ecobee and turn it off, or tell my Amazon Echo even, because you just open the door, walk out, right? Lifesaver. I love it.
Yeah, it's really good.
And then in reverse, when you close the doors, things coming back on.
Yeah, I also got I've got some stuff around. I don't use it as much, but it's if I'm out, and presence detection says via the app, if you're out and the doors, certain doors change their state, send a notification to the app, say, hey, somebody's moving around in your apartment. I use it less because I don't. My partner, she doesn't have the app and that kind of stuff, and there's lots of other privacy implications from that app, and she doesn't really need it. So she's moving around in the apartment a lot now and going out and stuff. So it's with COVID lockdowns, it's probably a little bit less useful that I know if the balcony door has changed its state and stuff. So, But yeah, on top of that, I've got what else have I got? I've actually got a list here. Something I prepared earlier. So yeah, I've got the Daikin air conditioning. I bought these Xiaomi fans. Have you seen them?
Ceiling fans? Do you mean, or
no? They're like pedestal.
Oh yeah, I actually got one, and the first thing my wife said is that a fan for ants? Because it's so tiny compared to what we usually have out here, right?
They're really nice.
Yeah.
As well.
Did you get the battery one or the one that plugs into the wall?
I got both.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they look really nice. Summer in my place is pretty rough, and so I was like, I need to get a new fan, and I'm working from home, and my other one was pretty noisy, and so I was like, I'm not going to lie, I immediately was like, IoT fans.
Obviously.
Makes sense.
And then that helped me decide that I needed new ones. And but these ones are really nice. They're white and
quiet.
Yeah, this guy has written a custom component.
Yep, I'm using the same one
for them.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really paranoid about that one breaking.
Actually, interesting that you said that. I think for whatever reason, mine has broken in the last couple of weeks or something. So I'm going to have to, maybe my IP address on the fan has changed or something. But yeah, I've got a card on my Lovelace saying, hey, the fans have unplugged it or something. So I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm really worried about it like breaking because they've been doing a lot of work. I've been following it in the code base to see what's going on and if this guy is going to move the code in there. And it looks like he has been, but obviously, he's got a day job and all that other stuff as well. But yeah, so I've got these two fans. I use them a lot. My partner uses them a lot as well. And they're really great. And then I've got the, it's almost like a rite of passage now, the Xiaomi robot vacuum cleaner.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's actually pretty good. I kind of bought it as a bit of a gimmick back in the day, but I hacked it. I've now got the custom firmware running on it as well. So I need to get the zone cleanup sort of working, but I find it does, like for an apartment, it does a pretty good job. I've been messing with that for a while, and the custom firmware so that it doesn't talk back to China is really, really good. It does just kind of work.
So is that the big thing there? Like, does it offer other stuff? Is it the security kind of implication there, or with the custom firmware?
Yeah, so I've got the first model of the Xiaomi Vax, and like to use it, you've got to use this Chinese app, the My Home app, and like it all talks back to China. And so what somebody initially did was that they let you hack it in a way that you could turn some of this stuff off and whatever, and integrate it more directly into Home Assistant, so you didn't have to go by their cloud service. But then somebody came out and just we could just replace all of the software in it with this like open source alternative. And so,
nice.
So I put that on there, and now it doesn't talk back at all.
Wow.
It's literally a completely local device. And but then on top of that, they've been adding more features. So like the model that I've got, they've added like zoned cleanup.
So you can essentially say clean the kitchen or clean the living room, and it'll only clean that area. Yeah,
exactly. And then they've given you like an API that you can, call those things. So Home Assistant can just say, run an automation and it'll go and trigger that zone. So I've got all of that running. It took a little bit of hacking around, but yeah, it's been super stable. I haven't seen a change in its behavior at all, which is pretty good. And then I've also I've got these Xiaomi plant sensors as well.
Yep.
So, Rohan and I have a few of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, they're super
They're
good.
Great.
They're not cheap though.
No, I know for me, they're like, I try and get them when they go down in price a little bit, but they're still like $20 a pop almost.
Yeah.
So I think they're really good. Like I grew chili plants, or I try to when the possum's not eating them into the ground. And so I bought them a long time ago, kind of when I went crazy with IoT stuff. I was like, hey, this is for sale on AliExpress, let's just buy it. But yeah, I was really, really impressed with how well they work. The plan was to have an irrigation system on my balcony this year, to sort of trigger automations based on watering and that kind of stuff, because I don't have water on my balcony, so I was going to just put a pump in there.
Yeah, have you got power on the balcony?
And, I do after my renovations.
Okay, nice.
So
Yep.
Yeah, so what my plan was is that I'd have a couple of smart plugs, and then either a decent enough like a pump for fountains or something like that. Bunnings, and then a tank, and then like a misting sort of. I actually bought half this stuff. It's sitting unopened at the moment, to like do like misting over the plants. So to be honest, with COVID and things like that, and also the possum is literally destroyed. I'm on the third floor in this possum kitchen.
Wow, are you sure it's a possum and not something else?
Yeah, I got a picture of him. So we were actually initially like, hey, there's a possum. That's great, nature in the suburbs, and then next morning we were like, that possum. It's got hell to pay. So that's sort of the core components, and then sort of use-wise, I've got Google Home. So and that sort of provides the interface to the home. I use that for like my girlfriend, the girlfriend mode. Rather than give her like the Home Assistant experience, I use that because she can use it anywhere, and I can reduce the number of entities that are exposed sort of right down to that, so that she just gets a pretty clean experience. That's sort of the core of it, and then I've got other bits and pieces, and then around that I've got the Unify Ubiquity gear throughout my house as well. That was sort of the other thing I did when I renovated, was to get data cabling through the whole place, make the network be less of a pile of cables in the corner where the internet comes in.
Beautiful.
And have it run through. So everything in the house now is cabled through nicely and hidden away, and got the internet sort of access point mounted in the hallway on the ceiling. And stuff like that. So, and then I've got sort of other bits and pieces, like I've got like a TV and some Chromecasts and all that kind of stuff integrated pretty nicely as well. So yeah, it's good. It's really good. But yeah.
That's awesome. So in terms of like, I'd say in terms of your uses and your automations, and what are kind of the top 3, let's say, that you find the most useful, that you like?
I think it's the routines for things like going to sleep. My partner, I've given her like a mode, like she speaks like a keyword, and it turns the fairy lights on the balcony, it turns the lamps on in the bedroom, turns off other lights in the rest of the house, but it also turns that fan on.
Nice.
Beside the bed. And like she fully loves it, loves that one thing, and like the fans are so quiet, they really are really good. And then I have kind of the reverse of that, in the morning, but it also like turns on the television, streams audio to plays the radio in the morning, turns off all of the fans. Like we put that in there because she was like, those fans are so quiet, they run all day, because I forget to turn them off and I can't hear them when I'm not in there. So that's sort of a big part of it. So those kind of automations, and then I do a lot of like voice control for the TV.
Okay.
And those kind of things. The other one that I use a lot is I use the pie hole.
The ad blocking.
For ad blocking.
Yeah.
And so I've got that. I've got that set up as well, so I can voice control it on and off. So,
nice.
Like, I really hate ads. I can't deal with them. And so I do anything I can to not see them, even if that means I have to pay for YouTube.
Speaking of which, subscribe to Nabu Casa today.
That's right.
Absolutely. That's the other thing I do have as well in Nabu Casa. But yeah, I've got the Pi-hole integration, and what I can do is I can a lot of the streaming services my girlfriend uses for things like watching MasterChef on TV and stuff, they don't work with the ad blocker on. So I've got like I use the switch on there.
Can you selectively
like, can't you just respect the ad blocker? Like, let me watch your content without ads. Like, and what really frustrates me with those streaming services is that the ads load really, really quickly. But then when you go to watch, like the MasterChef or whatever show you're trying to watch, it then buffers for 5 seconds and then says, sorry, network error, timeout. And you go back to watch it again, and you got to watch the ads again before you can actually start it. But I wonder why torrenting is so popular. Like, God.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Yeah. But what is cool is that it's now native functionality in Home Assistant. And which is great for everybody else, but it kind of took the wind out of my sails once I got it all working like I built it myself. I was like, oh man, that was one of those things I was going to talk about in the podcast, and now it just works. Everyone gets it. But what's cool about it is that you can expose the turning on and off of the ad blocker through like a regular switch. Yeah. And then my other half, she'll so I'm sure the neighbors hear her saying weird things like telling Google to turn the ad blocker off and all that kind of stuff, so she can stream, MasterChef. So
do you typically like tie in, like, let's say you say, hey, play Netflix, or I guess Netflix is a bad example, play, I don't know, whatever service with a ad, Hulu or whatever, and then could you tie that in with that kind of an automation to say, okay, if that's the case, then kill the ad blocker for this?
Yeah, you definitely could. It's probably because the ad blocker is just a switch, you could chain it with anything. I think the tricky bit is like what services.
Because the Chromecast, like if you say, for example, if you're using Chromecast, does it expose what app it's running or what it's streaming from?
It will tell you. I'm trying to remember. It can tell you what's playing on it, but I think it's pretty basic.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I don't use it in that sort of granular level either. So I kind of just use it as a streaming kind of output to the TV. The TV I've got as well, it's a Samsung one with the older firmware, so it's kind of breathing more life into it for a couple more years.
Yep. I know where you're coming from. I've got the same problem.
Yeah. But I think, coming back to your original question, I think the scenes around that are the big ones, and then the ad blocking. It's really nice as well with the ad blocking because it gives you metrics into the Home Assistant, Lovelace interface, so you can be like, don't have to go and log through to see what's being blocked and the state of it and things like that. So but yeah, it's but I think I was talking to you guys before about before this about I think that the biggest impact is, how it helped my partner sort of recover from being sick.
Yeah.
My partner, right? She's like from the country. She's like allergic to technology. She vocally thinks it's all unnecessary. We have the running joke that if she had her way, we'd all just go back to horse and cart, and that would be fine.
Yeah.
So when I was sort of working on all this stuff, she was always like, "Oh man, is this really necessary? The light switch is right over there, and whatever." But
interesting. How did you meet your girlfriend? Like, did you meet her at an AWS conference? And she was trying to at the front picketing against Amazon, setting up an infrastructure center with her horse and cart. Like that's seems like a very strange match.
Yeah. No, I think it's why it works. I think it's why, because it's like I don't talk technology really at all to her.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
It's good. But
my situation's no different, just FYI.
Yeah. So and the neighbours here I'm sure are swearing at it when her routines don't work as well, or it half does it. But she got during COVID last year, she got like very, very sick. She had to have abdominal surgery effectively. And I had to become her primary carer.
Yep.
And
so
it was kind of a pretty bad time in that we're in the middle of a pandemic. She has to go to hospital. She has to have a whole bunch of stuff that was pretty nasty. And then she had to kind of have somebody look after her. So I moved her back to my place, but she could barely walk. She was very, very low in energy and all these kind of things. She would often just pass out and whatever. And so I also had to work remotely. So I had to have a full-time job. She couldn't work and paying the bills. But what really helped a lot was all the Home Assistant stuff. She would want to be able to turn the TV on, but she was in pretty bad shape. She could voice control it on, or she could use the phone app to do some of these things. And then, she was super sensitive to temperature when she was recovering. So she was able to use the Daikin air conditioning through the Google Home app or voice control to really help adjust, the comfort levels that she had. I used reminders for her medication just off Google Home. For those kind of things. And she could adjust the lights, as she needed to without having to get out of bed. And now she uses all this stuff. Now that she's recovered, she uses this stuff like...
Old habits die hard.
She's going to lose some of her air conditioning privileges this year because we had a $700 power bill.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that I used a lot for her was, I had to ask, for her permission to do this as well, which I think is one of the important things is, when I was going out, and I wasn't going out very much when she was really sick, but if I needed to go and do the grocery shopping and stuff, I have some of those Xiaomi internal 360-degree spinning cameras, and I put them inside, so I could keep an eye on her while I was out, just to make sure she hadn't got up and had a fall and it made the difference. It really did in her being able to recover and have that kind of level of automation. Yeah. I think it's great stuff, and I think we're going to see way more of this kind of automation for recovering, patients and stuff and out care in the future.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
So it was mostly, so she would just access everything through the voice commands to do all that, and your fall detection as well. Did you incorporate anything else, or was it just manual in terms of looking for the fall? Like you'd open up your phone, check in the app, and see what's up, or did you?
Yeah, I mainly just would have Casa. I mainly just have the cameras open in the Home Assistant screen, sort of on one of my screens if I was in another room, and that was mainly it. I didn't do too much automation. That would be a cool one for some of that image recognition. Is if we could do fall detection, it would be good. You could probably also use like vibration sensors in hindsight, but I kind of was just like using what I had.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, hey, I'm going to be creepy and leave this camera in here because I think you're going to, you're at risk of, passing out or something like that. She was cool with it. She was like, but yeah, that would actually be quite a good one. I like fall detection.
Yeah.
What did you have? Like, I think there's like ZB buttons or keychain buttons that you could have. Did you have anything like a panic button that you could press to get your attention or anything like that? Did you think about anything?
Not
like
really. I probably, the other thing is when it all started going on, the Android app was just coming really good. Like I think the Android app is fantastic now. But I think it probably hadn't hit its stride yet around functionality. I think in hindsight, I probably would have just said, I built her a dashboard and just said it had one big button on it,
help,
and then had her log in and do it. But yeah, I generally tried not to be out too long during this phase. But
especially with lockdown, right? It looks like you could be out for too long anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd probably do something like that now. The other thing that I've been doing, which is kind of related, is that my other half, her mum is traveling effectively by herself around Australia at the moment, and like with a caravan. And so I created her a user and installed the app on her phone, and that's how we know where she is.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you can see a map, obviously, of where she is. Yeah, and so saves a Life 360 subscription. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah. So she is checking in with other people, but it's like if we don't hear from her and we check in, we'll be like, oh, where is she? And has she sort of is she where we expect her to be, and that kind of stuff, which was it was a kind of strange outcome that I did it that way, because I was like looking at like all of these other tools, and you can do it with like Google stuff. Maybe I can just do it with Home Assistant, give her a user account, and then chuck her on a dashboard.
Yep, that's really cool.
So so I thought that was kind of. I'd actually spent a whole bunch of time looking at other options, and then I was like, what I really need is this, and then I was like, I could just do exactly that with Home Assistant. Yeah, so yeah, no, it was good fun. It's with that. So, but with all of the stuff that's helped. In that space. Now I wish I'd done the fall sensor in hindsight.
Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, you do what you can in a pinch, right? And again, especially with everything closed and everything. I mean, sure, by the time you ship something in from China or wherever, it's going to be a couple of months, right? So
yeah. Do what you can in a pinch. I think that's a great tagline for Home Assistant. It's like
that's right.
Like that. Yeah, it's like, you can cobble so much stuff together with it. Like, I think that sums it up really well. so that's the story. Yeah.
How did your partner, what did she think of the automations and stuff? Were you constantly having to tinker? Was she like, oh, this would be cool if I could do this? Or did you just sort of like set it all up and go, all right, this is how it's going to work now? Or was there a feedback loop?
It's funny, we're in this weird situation now where she'll say to me, hey, can you get the morning routine to turn the fan off now or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you realize
right.
what is happening now. You're actually asking me to automate things further. And she's like, I know. It's weird. But yeah, I think, the basic stuff was pretty good. Like I had it all. So she got sick just as I'd kind of renovated everything.
Right.
So everything, I'd kind of got it all prepped and things were working quite nicely and things like that. So I didn't have to do too much, but I am sort of adding enhancements in here and there now based on what she wants. And, it's coming into winter, and I know that she's going to be like, I want to be able to pre-warm the house and that kind of stuff when we're coming back. So I think we'll start seeing a bit more of that as the seasons change. And the fans go back into the cupboard and
that's it.
And so on. So yeah, I know. Like we actually do get cold weather here.
Yeah.
It's just not at the level of yours.
Yeah.
No blizzards or anything.
You know what? That's okay. I'm looking forward to my summer now. And then, it's finally started to stay bright outside for past like 6 p.m. So that's nice. But
yeah. And then Toronto has very good summers as well, actually.
It does. It's beautiful.
I was very surprised when I was there with how warm and humid it gets. But
yep.
But yeah, so I think that'll be the sort of, as we change the seasons, I'll start seeing a bit more of automation tweaking and stuff at her request. Right. But yeah, things look stable now. I think that's the big thing at the moment that I've noticed with Home Assistant. I know, like Phil, listening in the past, you were how do I say this? You were concerned with the direction away from YAML, right? But one thing I have noticed is that there's a lot more people that I know who are like non-technical who are really working with it. Because they can do a lot more pointing, clicking, and quick integrations. So it's like even when you do tweaks and stuff now, it's pretty quick.
I must admit, like the UI is getting a lot better. I still think Home Assistant has, one of its weak points is, user experience, and I don't think that's a secret to the Home Assistant team. I think once again this is an open source project. People pull requests are welcome, right? But I do think the user experience needs work, and it's something that they're looking into. Yep. But I think it is the UI is getting a lot better just in this year alone, right? Like in the in 21.5 we had just a small tweak to the integrations page, which made we can now see what are cloud components, what are local components, and all that. So much little things like that are making things a lot easier to see. My only concern with YAML so far is that migrating systems at the moment for Home Assistant OS it might be backup and restore, but I'm on Docker. I haven't touched wood, haven't had to yet migrate a system. I know the storage folder has a whole lot of permissions, and backing up is my responsibility now. So yeah, I think in terms of moving away from YAML, I can see that as long as automations and scripting stays, that I can always use YAML. I'm happy for integrations and the config to go into the UI. I just want the backup and restore procedure to be a lot easier.
Seamless.
Because the last thing I would hate is to have to reintegrate all my username and passwords and reset up all the integrations, get new entity IDs on a new system, and then not be able to just import my YAML file all at once and be up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think the changes away from that have definitely made it more accessible. I'll give you an example. I've got at work, right? When I say more accessible, I mean like open to a whole bunch of people who would never have normally done this.
Yes,
right. Used it, and so like at work, we've got this IoT Slack channel. So I work for a consultancy, I don't know, 150 people across the world. And we've got this IoT channel. There's probably about 40 people in there at the moment, but I think a big chunk of them are kind of spectators at the moment for the sort of core 15 people in the company.
Always the
kind
way.
of going deep on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But our like non-technical customer success manager in Melbourne. He's renovated his house, and he kind of got wind of like, oh, you can do smart lights, and he took every piece of advice that we gave him about like just slow and steady baby steps, and just threw it all into the wind and just went all in.
Yep.
And he's actually been pretty successful with it. But I think it's because of the usability changes.
Yeah.
So this guy, let's just call him Nick. He has got TVs, robotic vacuums. I actually have a list here. He bought his irrigation system, his solar panel automation, Hue indoor and outdoor lighting. He automated his laundry fans for humidity based off.
He is living the
Xiaomi
dream right
sensors.
now.
He's got automated blinds, automated garage door openers. He's got the camera systems and doorbell systems. He put it all in himself. He's not a technical guy.
Wow, good for him.
Jeez.
And like, and it was kind of like dragging and dropping. You know, one of my colleagues like logged into his thing via Nabu Casa to like tweak a few things and debug a few things. But like, yeah, he went all in, and he's like non-techie. And I think that was the moment where I was like, there is no way he could have done this if he had to write a line of YAML. You know, it's.
And I think that's the point of moving away from YAML, right? Because you know it needs to be point and click setup.
Yeah,
and
100%.
You know, do basic automations within the UI. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also he was very lucky. He kind of started when Home Assistant like hit this real sweet spot of stability and usability all at once. I was like, man, he's got more done in such a short time, man. I was like, by your stage, I would have rebuilt like 5 times.
But which is awesome, right? I mean, that goes to show kind of whatever they're doing is working, and kind of keep going. But it's it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I remember the YAML episodes and the various blog posts, and I was like, it's gonna be interesting to see where this lands. But I think it sounds like they've got a pretty good sweet spot.
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
So, but yeah, I'm trying to think what else I've been doing. Like I've spent a lot of time like hacking on things. And like, have you guys seen? I'll tell you one thing I have been thinking about. Have you guys seen any automated desk stuff?
Like it's a sit-stand desk sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
Rohan, I think you can talk about this.
Yeah, so I got an IKEA. I want to say it's like Idesen or something like that. Just name escapes me right now, but it's one of the Bluetooth ones. So it's a BLE one. I actually don't like the BLE functionality. I actually prefer having like a plus minus button or up down button, whatever. Just because I'm not going to use an app to do this. Like it's stupid. But I just like the top better and everything. I just found it was better built than their other one. And so somebody has reverse engineered their BLE code, I guess, if you want to call it, right? So that what you can do is basically you can actually using their app, using like a desktop app or whatever, you can press up down and it'll go up down. So the part I haven't done yet, because I actually changed offices after I did, I moved to the basement just because it's a little less echoey down here for the podcast and everything. But what happens is I'm sure it's easy enough to code some kind of integration into Home Assistant where you bring in one of these people's codes. And there's a few different projects out there, right? So you bring it in and basically say up down as, I don't know what component you bring it in as, whether it's like I would probably do like
maybe like a cover or something.
Well, I was thinking a cover.
Yeah, cover, I think.
Like a blind, 50%, 100% up.
Yeah, exactly, right? So where you can actually adjust the height of what it is, and then you just have to remap the values or whatever. But again, that was something that I kind of I was going to do, and then I kind of abandoned just because I moved downstairs. But I may be getting a sit-stand office downstairs too. So let's see. Maybe if I do, I will. But I also time.
Yeah, I'd be super keen to hear about that, or anyone who's like done exactly that. So I've got a stand-up desk. So I'm almost 6'8", and so my desk, my back was falling apart. Years of bad posture working in IT, so I got a decent one. But they gave me for free when I bought this the Bluetooth adapter for it.
Okay.
And I got pretty far through reverse engineering the protocol on it, and I'm not a developer, so I it was pretty ghetto. Like I'd pretty much run the Bluetooth analyzer on Android, and press the buttons on the app, and then write the timestamps down, and figure out what I did on the app at that moment, and then I ran it through Wireshark, fished out all of the codes, and I got it to a point where I could actually control the desk up and down.
Nice.
From Python, but
very nice.
Then I exceeded my abilities. The requirements to do any more exceeded my abilities.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was like there were problems as well with stability with Bluetooth Low Energy and like me controlling it and going to certain points and so I kind of got stuck and I Googled around and then I just stopped. Yeah. But it's like I would love to see something like that so I could like raise the desk on a schedule.
What sort of desk is it?
This is a Zen Space desk, but there's a few companies around Australia, but they're pretty much all the same. Like it's just like different tops to the same Chinese made.
Yep. Right. Legs.
Sort of the legs and motor and controller. So, being able to, if I could get a component going for that, it would be so good because the apps are terrible for these desks. So even if you could just control the memory locations that the desks have, so you can say, 1 is low and 4 is whatever setting, that would be sweet. But because I also kind of was like, it would be cool to have the desk go all the way to the top when the robot vacuum cleaner comes in and keeps some of the cables.
That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's a good use case. Yeah.
So, I got my cables like pretty good now, but there's still like one that always drags. And I was like, man, I could actually lift this.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that much around there. Other people doing it. I saw one guy had reversed it. He'd reversed the pins instead of the Bluetooth stuff. So it was like he hard coded. He built like a cable, like a serial cable, to put it into something something else. And I was like, I kind of want to keep the Bluetooth functionality there.
Right. So in the sense that you mean they basically took it and basically built their own like serial controller or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, I could do it that way with like, the Pi Zeros. I was like, I could probably build one like that, and then build an API, and then have Home Assistant call the API. But
I think for something like that, I think you would want to do like an ESP32 or even a Pi Zero, I guess would work, right? Where you could run a script on there, and then the nice thing is I don't know ESP Home well enough, but if you can get that, it's already got the APIs built in. It's already got all of that, and you can just bring it into Home Assistant. Hell, it'll discover into Home Assistant even, right? So it might be kind of cool.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
That ESP world I find super daunting. Like it's probably not, but I don't know. I think it's because I'm not a developer, like a proper developer. I just see it as like out of my
the ESP Home itself isn't bad because and I kind of like it because, just like you, Keiran, I'm not a developer. I'm the furthest thing from one. But it kind of makes it easy if you understand, like you understand YAML. I mean, you were saying you've been using it from Home Assistant from back in the day, even, right? And so really, you build out what you need in that, and ESP Home will figure out what components you need and whatever, and configure those, and then push them onto the controller, onto ESP, right? Which is, check it out, because I do really like, and the ESP32s have BLE built into it, right? So that's actually how I bring in my plant sensors and things like that, like the Xiaomi plant sensors. Is I just have a ESP32 running ESP Home, and it just brings everything in that way. And it's unplugged right now just because I was using the power cord for something else, but it's been rock solid other than that.
Yeah. So you have the plant sensors talk to ESP Home Bluetooth stuff, and then is that because of distance away from other stuff?
Yeah. So because I'm running all of my Home Assistant stuff in Docker, right? So I don't really have a BLE. It's in a virtual machine on my lab server. So I don't have a BLE dongle or anything associated with that. So essentially, this is converting BLE to IP for me. So it's basically connected to Wi-Fi, and it goes out, and so there's just one sitting around upstairs, and it just goes and every one of those Xiaomi sensors registers to that. Well, not registers to it. It scans for the Xiaomi sensors. I have those MAC addresses in there, and it just goes in and populates my plant sensors in Home Assistant. So Home Assistant has it discovered, and it just uses the native API there and brings it in. So no MQTT, nothing. Yeah,
oh, that's cool.
I like it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think also with this like the ESP stuff, like I think I'd probably pick it up if I had like a use case to hack on it. You know, it's much easier to have learn that stuff when you have a problem.
Yeah, you know what? They're not super expensive, right? Which is why I like them. I think they're like Canadian. They're like $12-15 or something like that, which is pretty equivalent to Australian dollars, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, no, I should check them out. I've also got this like old Kogan panel heater. It's a smart one. It's 2-year. But it's kind of died. It still works as a heater, but it's the smarts inside it, which is like some kind of ESP in it. It's dead, and I've been meaning to pull it open and try and see if I can reset it and maybe flash it with something else, or even just replace it, like that ESP controller inside of it, with something else. But I'm also kind of cautious about 240 volts.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people have done this stuff though, right? Like it's you're probably not the first. So
yeah. So I think as we come into winter and I want to have that heater like kind of working again and have it automated, I might have another look at it. My dad's good with all that power type stuff because it's his background. So I might be like, hey, can you pull this apart and tell me if I can replace this one little piece without me, getting fried.
Or burning down the apartment.
That's actually more the concern I know that I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I'm right there with you, right, Keiran? It's, we've had Pete on the show before, XBMC Nut, who's talked about his setup for taking the Breville espresso machine and making that smart with a Shelly. And every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, I really want to do this. And I was talking to a colleague that works with me, and he was like, yeah, I've got one of these too. I've seen the instructions. I'm going to do it. Blah blah blah. And I'm just like, inevitably, it's like a $500 like coffee machine, right? And I know that's not expensive for an espresso machine, but it's still it's expensive to me. Like,
it's not like you're going to return it and say, it doesn't work anymore. Can I get my money back? Right? Like they're going to you opened it up and you stuffed it, mate. Like, no, get out of here.
Yeah. yeah. And even ethically, right? Like I wouldn't necessarily do that, right? But it's if I broke it, that's on me, right? But at the same time, I think I'm kind of like, oh man, it's a very, very expensive toy to potentially break, right? So, And exactly, and that's with, and if for those listening, if you haven't looked at his instructions, Pete's instructions were actually beautiful. Like it gives you like step by step. Okay, now solder this here, right? And that's where I start to scare myself is with that kind of stuff. So I completely get it here, and especially when, and I mean, I'm just worried about my coffee machine. You're worried about burning your house down, which again, right there with you.
Yeah. Like even when I got that heater from Kogan, right, and it's all like rebranded, white labeled 2-year stuff, I was a bit like, do I trust 2-year to tell me that my heater is turned off when it probably isn't?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Like, and the answer kind of is no, I don't. Like, I think the only 2-year stuff that I've got in this house are my balcony fairy lights, and that's only because I missed the chance to flash them before they rolled that fix out to put the other firmware on them. But I think that's about as far as I trust them as some balcony lighting. It's.
Are you using the local to your custom component?
I did look at it, but yeah, I haven't done it. It looked like a bit of work, to be honest.
Yeah, I think once you get the API keys and the tokens and stuff for your device, because I've got a couple of, I have a Kogan oil diffuser that I use to bring into Home Assistant. I think from Bunnings I got the Netgear like 4-way power board that can be individually controlled.
Yeah.
So I've got that controlled by local to you. And I've got a Kogan Smart Kettle, which currently is not working, but I have I created a Node.js script to get around that, to get that working. So, yeah, like once I think there's like instructions. It's just like a command that if you've got a Mac or access to a Linux box, it's pretty easy to get the API keys that you need from the devices. Then you can just use the IP address and block them from the router and prevent needing to have it go out to the 2-year servers.
I've got I bought these 2-year switches for the balcony lighting, but I bought them just after I'd flashed one, and I was like, "This is great! I'm going to buy these other 2. They're going to be on the balcony. Everything's going to be great." And then they were the later ones, and I was like, "Oh man, I now have to use 2-year because I can't flash them." I was following the updating, and they have it's unlocked. I can't see how they're going to find a way to flash it onto the new devices personally from what I read, but yeah, I'm kind of stuck with them at the moment, and then so maybe I do need to bite the bullet and look at the local stuff. But yeah, it's like, do you have to use an add-on as well though, right? That's the easiest way to install it.
Yeah, so there's a local, like just in the hacks, there's a local 2-year component. So then you just put in the IP address, use the tool to get the tokens for your device. It is a bit, from memory now, thinking about it, it is a bit tricky that you do need to register a 2-year developer account and go through a whole bunch of stuff that way. But once you've done that, you then don't need to use the cloud at all. You could block them. Because once you've got, you essentially need the 2-year developer account to get the access key, which you then plug into Home Assistant.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Through the local 2-year component.
Yeah, I think I need to have a look at it. That's if they survive. The two 2-year things are out on my balcony controlling the lights, right? And I've got outdoor power.
Not in any weatherproof box, I'm guessing.
Well, I've got that's where I was going with this. I've got them connected to some outdoor power points. But I still, on the balcony, I get a bit of like sideways spray. When it rains. So but I didn't want to wrap them in plastic or anything because you get like humidity inside them. And so I've got them covered with some like takeaway food plastic containers.
Nice.
They kind of just hang over the top of it. Awesome. And then I've pushed some plants around them to keep it in place so the wind doesn't blow it away. It's been super reliable. Like it keeps the rain off them. And I'm like, if there's a fire, it will be outside. Is kind of how.
Yeah, it's not going to burn much down.
Yeah, so but like we've had crazy rain over the last couple of months, and it kept them all dry and everything for the meantime being. But
I think Bunnings sell like an outdoor box that you can put your electrical stuff in, right? So as long as you can get an extension cord into that box and then put your
like an IP rated, like a 67 or 68 rated.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I was looking at those. They were sold out because I was looking at it for the irrigation system that I was building, and then I was just like, this will do. So they work fine now. But I am waiting for one day after heavy rain. The fairy lights on one of them isn't going to come on.
That's funny.
So yeah.
Well, Keiran, thank you so much for taking the time, staying up late to talk to us. It's been awesome having a chat, how you're using Home Assistant.
Thank you very much for having me. I know I've probably jumped a bit all over the place from my setup and experiences.
That's what we love to hear.
But it was great to talk to you guys, and good to put some faces to the voices that I hear on Spotify.
There you go.
That's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Cheers.
All right. Take care. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@hasspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io. The
Home Assistant Podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics we discussed today, check out our show notes on haspodcast.io.